Here we go. Okay, we should be live. Hopefully people can hear me. And there is the Shadow Blazer. From out of the shadows, he rises. Sorry, guys, if I'm running a little late for the live stream tonight. Basically, my daughter is being extremely finicky and not wanting to go to bed. So I decided to extend things a little bit so that we could maybe get her to sleep. And we wouldn't have to worry about that, but only time will tell. If I'm speaking especially quiet, that's why. I'm really trying to encourage her to go to sleep. So with that said, Alex, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I'm all ready for some Digitalk.
Well, then I hate to tell you this, but we're not covering Digimon. Sorry.
Why must you hurt me so, Adam?
According to you, I hurt you on a regular basis. So
Yes, but now this just stings a little more.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know what to tell you, my friend. I don't know what to tell you.
God damn it.
So there we go. I think we've got everything taken care of.
Okay. Load. Thank you. Copy.
I promise we'll start shooting the breeze, people. We're just making sure that all the social networks know that we're starting up. And we've got lots to talk about tonight. So much so that a lot of our stuff might actually get pushed to next week. Just because we won't have as much time as I was hoping. It's either that or we plow through the stories and everything works out perfectly, because I do have backup stories just in case. I mean, obviously we have a bunch of TGS news that people want us to talk about, but there isn't a whole lot to talk about, honestly. I think the biggest announcement that I saw out there was was the Resident Evil movie announcement. That was about it, at least off the top of my head. I'm already getting questions. Why are you so quiet? Here's why. Because I'm making sure my baby doesn't wake up.
Yep, we're still getting ourselves a little organized here in time for the show.
Hello, Forlorn Hope.
Hello.
We know you. We love you. I'm being extra quiet right now. I know I can't show my gratitude, but I am still grateful. I promise. Gratitude is happening. If you don't believe me, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, feel free to ask us questions before we get things started. Either that or I can start asking you guys what you thought about these stories that we have to talk about, which we have quite a bit.
Yep.
We have Death Stranding details. That was another thing from TGS that happened that wasn't as much as people are letting it on to be, and frankly, more than Hideo actually needed to give right now. I honestly had no problem with Hideo with Kojima leaving us in the dark until he had like full-on gameplay demos. It's usually how he does it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're working for new people doesn't mean I want you to step outside your norms, Hideo.
Oh, that's cute.
And already we have some debates. I've already been getting these questions myself, like how do I feel about Keiji Inafune's legacy so far this year, where he had both Mighty Number 9 and Recore come out. And if you guys don't know my opinions on Recore, I actually did a direct tries of it earlier this week. You guys can check that out. And, well, next week is going to be my thoughts on the ever controversial Mighty Number 9. Don't grin at me. You grin at me whenever I have problems with the internet. You do not make it any easier, my friend. Yep, this is going to be another one where I get the internet to hate me, people. It's just the way it goes. As far as if people want to know like my additional thoughts on Recore, I've been able to play it a little bit more, and I still love it. I still think it's great. I love the fact that a lot of Mega Man mechanics are now used in a 3D environment, and they look just as good as I thought they would. But, you know, it's still early on into the game, and from what people have actually been telling me, I think the average completion time for Recore is like 25 to 30 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a ways to go before any official opinions can be made. Sega once considered a Yakuza game outside of Japan, or set outside of Japan, but then it wouldn't be called Yakuza. And it would just be a Grand Theft Auto clone, would it not?
I wouldn't think so. I don't know much about the Yakuza franchise, to be fair, but I don't think it's anything like Grand Theft Auto. I would assume if it was a Yakuza game outside Japan, then maybe it'd be like a, I don't want to say necessarily like a local, either like Italian mafia or maybe like a sort of Chinatown-esque gang, just something like
triads.
That.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I say it was close to Grand Theft Auto is because you're playing somebody in the criminal underworld.
Yeah, but there's a lot of games like that where you're going to be playing, where you might be playing criminal syndicates.
Sure,
but
I'm not saying that wrong. I'm just saying I'm going with what I know.
You know, Grand Theft Auto is a sandbox game, and
yeah. So people tell me, and then I have to tell them, well, no, it's not the first sandbox game. So shut up.
No.
The first sandbox game was The Legend of Zelda, bitches. And then somebody's going to bring up like some Atari game that I'm not aware of that did sandbox before then.
That's why you got to be careful when you define the first, because there's a good chance something precedes it. There's like the genre setters, I guess you could say, the trendsetters.
It was like the it wasn't Max. It wasn't Sid Meier or the dude behind SimCity, but somebody like claimed to be the earliest form of the Sim and early RTS franchise, and then somebody dug up Utopia on Atari, and it's like, oh, I guess that was the earliest one. Let's see. I'm actually looking it up. Atari sandbox game. And here we go. A friend of mine's already saying, no, Adventure would be the first one. Atari's Adventure. I don't know if I would count that, but because it's not sandbox, it's got a limited space to it. It's in a maze. Apparently, Asteroids is being considered a sandbox game. I don't know about that one either.
It's more of a shoot 'em up, wouldn't it be? More consumer shoot 'em up.
Doesn't really work. Okay, better preface that, Alex, because we're not talking about all of Digimon Try tonight. We're talking about episode 1.
Yeah, but meh.
Like I said, and I'm going to be talking about Dirt Face Mon because that's what I do.
Dirt Face Mon.
Yes, behold the power that is Dirt Face Mon. And yes, I'm going to say it because I'm proud that I did it. I flipped off Greymon. Because Greymon.
Why would you flip off Greymon? What Greymon did he?
I never liked Greymon.
But Greymon is awesome. He's a dinosaur.
I beg to disagree.
Are awesome.
I beg to disagree. The Jurassic Park T-Rex would kick the crap out of Greymon. I'd put money on the Jurassic Park T-Rex.
Nothing beats the intimidation factor of Skull Greymon. Skull Greymon.
Well,
he's got
Skull
a skull.
Greymon, but if Skull Greymon was the legit evolution, then I would have no problem with it. But he wasn't. He was the mistake evolution.
Yes, the mistake, because he's a virus type. And we all know virus types are generally evil.
So at that point, he's easily trumped by Megidramon, who is literally the eater of digital worlds. So at that point, no. And Metal Greymon, I thought was just, it's Greymon with a metal arm.
And a metal skull. Give some credit.
But again, nothing. But again, nothing that really resonates with me. I would actually say the only legit Greymon evolution that I ever attached to was War Greymon, and it was simply because I was so pissed at Metal Garurumon when I wanted like a variation on Were Garurumon, because I like that one better. Romney-sama.
Hello.
Hello.
Didn't mean to cut it this close. Let's just say I've been working on a few other side projects that have been needing my attention.
Oh, I cut it close too, because I've been my baby girl's already having problems going to bed, and so I actually waited like an extra 15 minutes before I started up the stream just to see if we can get her to bed.
Yep.
Forlorn Hope, if you have any problems getting on, because spoilers, you are our special guest, let me know.
I think she'll be joining us later purely for the Digimon talk.
Oh, come on. Okay. That's your call.
Yeah.
And so at that point, then we're all going to get off on rants on the other stories, and we're going to get 15 minutes of Digimon time.
Yeah.
Because that's usually how it goes. Like I set aside a half hour, and then we get off on rants, and
yeah,
and then I have 15 minutes to talk about Digimon.
Should have made a more trim agenda.
I tried. And then there was a lot of, like I said, a lot of this, basically what I'm going to try and do is like I have a solid cutoff for Digimon. So I'm probably going to enforce that. And then everything that we haven't talked about gets moved to next week.
That reminds me, Funimation has tickets on sale for Godzilla. I don't know if we wanted to make this into a Geek News show or just look into it individually.
Well, I can't afford 7 tickets if that's what you're asking.
I can pay for it.
I can help cover it too.
When is it coming?
I think it's in October.
Let's see. What do we have in October? Because I mean, we've already I don't even know if we're gonna be able to make Sully work, dude. Because we're so behind on that.
Yeah.
Doctor Strange. Okay, we actually don't have anything in October, so yeah, we could probably make it work and have some fun with it.
October 11th through the 18th.
So it'll just depend on which one comes to which theater on which days, since that's more of a range. Unless Funimation has the cojones to basically rent a theaters for that long.
It sounds like it's going to be a week-long thing, but let me look. I'm on Funimation now. God, there. Okay, I was looking for the search bar.
Okay, it's formatted.
Hello, Anime Atlas. He has confirmed that Awesome Anime Fan gave him the 4 dislikes because he made a new account not too long ago. And he subscribed to my channel. Okay.
And I got a feeling I know who it is.
Atlas, can you like PM me the name?
We need to know what to tell the hitman.
Exactly. And not that Hitman, not that series. No. So many people ask me to play Hitman. I can't do it. I'm just kind of done with those kinds of games. Well, I'm just happy because I actually bounced from 103 subscribers earlier this week to 106 tonight. So I'm getting more solid in the 100 category.
I think I got purged. I think I dropped a few subs.
I haven't taken a look at my sub count in a while. I keep getting emails of new subscribers, so there's that.
I don't get as much emails about new subscribers. I wonder if there's actually a possibility, like if you...
I know it's like a setting.
Keep yourself private, then you don't send out those emails.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, because, I don't get them that often either, but let's see. So, as for Godzilla, it looks like coming to the Century 16 Theater in Salt Lake City and the West Jordan Theater.
Which would probably, Jordan Landing would probably be better for all of us.
Yeah.
That seems to be the good, like, medium theater halfway point for everybody to meet at. Tell you what, let's put that on Facebook, and then we'll hash out the details and figure all that out so that we can get going.
And you guys in the comments too, let us know. Do you want Geek News to talk about Shin Godzilla?
Shin Godzilla.
It's Gojira. It's pronounced Gojira.
Gojira.
If you're gonna go all Japanese, pronounce it right. I even have it right here. Gojira.
Actually, I was gonna say, I know you like to say it that way, but Alex, I love you dearly. My dad is rising from the grave to smack you upside the head because you're saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Well, you give me crap about Mountain Daylight Time.
Well, that's because that's an actual time thing that's going to confuse people. We're not in standard time. We're not daylight saving time.
Okay, so from here on in,
we're not in Arizona.
I'm going to put in 10 p.m. Mountain Time.
And
everybody's going to get it.
If you can't keep the daylight or standard time, at least put just MT. But we're not in Arizona, so therefore we are still in daylight saving time.
Actually, I think technically it ended, and it'll start in the fall, I think, actually. It'll start, I think next month, actually.
Yeah.
So we're actually in standard time, and daylight saving time starts next month.
When the hell did this happen?
I thought that was how it worked, is that spring forward is when it's done, fall back is when it starts, because it makes sense, because in the winter you have few hours in the day because the days get shorter, and so it makes sense that if you fall back, you're saving more daylight.
No, I'm pretty certain that daylight saving time refers to moving forward the clocks. I don't know. The whole system doesn't make a lot of sense. We should just get rid of this stupid thing, but...
Yeah, you can thank Ben Franklin for the idea. Both Ben Franklin and, well, the Germans.
I don't want to talk to Ben Franklin. I heard his thoughts on women in Assassin's Creed 3, and they were creepy and kind of disgusting for an old man to talk about. So, yeah, there you go.
All things considered, I mean, the guy was a player in his 70s. I mean, damn.
He was, yes. It's one of those things that's very unique to read about him. But at the same time, it's just like, ew. I get the people that are older than me still do things like that, but ew.
Especially considering the hygiene of the period.
And you had to bring the hygiene into it. I was just like, I don't want to know.
Oh, I can go further. I can give you more nightmare fuel. I've done it before.
Please, Romney, my friend, please don't. Please don't.
Paul
don't
Rubens plays Ben Franklin. Thank you. There you go. Although he probably would do a good job, come to think of it.
Yeah, it would.
Okay. All right. Well, we are officially 5 minutes late, so let's go ahead and get things started. And I guess it's just going to be the three of us, because I don't know if Aldo's going to show up or not. I thought he was going to, but crap came up.
Who knows? All right. Sound speed.
Shit. But
That's not a comforting term to hear, Alex.
I'm okay. So
right,
I'm rolling now.
Okay, so if everybody's ready, 3, 2, 1. All right, here we go, people. Welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions for Saturday night, September 17th, 2016. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody has had a wonderful week, an awesome weekend so far, and even more to come, because it's going to be awesome, because we have lots of topics to get into. Mine has been very, very busy, and part of that is because I actually had to upheave my entire schedule because of a recent announcement that I did actually want to cover, and because I didn't want the internet hating me this week. But then the internet's going to hate me next week, so did I really do anything in the long run? That's going to be the thing, because next week I'm going to be giving my thoughts and review the ever-controversial Mighty Number 9 and my thoughts on it. And frankly, just to give you guys a spoiler, I don't hate it. So with that being said, though, I hope everybody else has had a wonderful weekend. And of course, I'm being joined by my usual panel of fellow geeks, fellow YouTubers, fellow critics, fellow analyzers, fellow awesome people in general.
Fennel awesome people.
Fennel.
I actually
is that for,
I said Fenno, but
is that for our our unannounced culinary spinoff that we've been passing back and forth?
No comment. And so I'm also being joined by the Shadow Blazer himself, Alex Short. How are you doing this fine evening?
Doing well. Sorry I couldn't find a suitable little Digimon avatar to use for tonight's show. I should have thought about that sooner. That's my own fault. But so I just had to fall back on either the default or just going with Homer.
Just get Greymon. It'd be so awesome.
Yeah, but if I really was hoping to find a little something to fit as a decent avatar, but all images are huge when I do a general image search of Digimon. So here I am. But yes, we're talking about Digimon later tonight, sneak peek. But otherwise, I'm doing well, but busy work week otherwise.
Yep. And people are already kind of asking me, like, why are you being so quiet? So my daughter's having a little bit of an issue going to sleep. So I'm trying very hard not to yell. I'm trying very hard not to scream. So if I'm in this lower tone, that's why. It's nothing against you guys. I am not having a sore throat or anything like that. I just want my daughter to go to sleep. And with that, we also are being joined by Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost, Utah, of Romney's Reviews from the Shelf. Romney, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Have been working on a side project that I have to get ready for October without giving too much away. And so that's been taking up most of my time, which is why, aside from recovering from the traffic accident, as much as I can say about that, that's pretty much what's also been taking up a lot of my time. And so far, the week's been okay.
Which is funny, because when we went to go see Digimon, we actually came across our fellow Genshiken voiceover, or voice actress, the person who played, is it Omi that was the name in there?
She played Ono and she played Kasukabe. Why do you keep getting stuck on Omi?
I'm trying to remember the dwarf's name, not necessarily the character's name.
Oh, you're thinking of Gim.
Gim, that's what I'm thinking of.
But yeah, for those of you wondering, that's Kame, best known for her Facebook page, Turtle Bunny's Cosplay. She's been trying to rebrand her nickname, but Kame is kind of the name that's stuck, so she's just rolling with it.
What? There's nothing wrong with the Kame house. There's nothing wrong with it. Master Roshi's an awesome guy.
Well, depending on what time you catch him. I mean, if you interrupt him during some of his private time, he can get a little bit testy, especially if you're a dick.
Yeah.
Unless you bribe him.
Well, he's always for bribery. That's the way it goes. Either it can be money, it can be food, and it also can be nudie magazines, because that's how Master Roshi roll.
Or the exercise videos. I mean, especially if you look at something like the opening to Cat's Eye. I mean, I can't blame Master Roshi.
Exactly. So we have plenty of stories to get into, and also for the last half hour, we are going to be discussing Digimon Adventure Tri Episode 1, because we were actually able to get into a theatrical screening. And so you guys will get our thoughts on all of the problems, including the fact that Drac actually caused a little bit of controversy in the theater. We'll get to that later. So let's go ahead and get into our first story this evening, and it's straight from TGS. So we have a couple of stories from TGS. but not too much because, unfortunately, there weren't like major announcements. We knew Nintendo wasn't going to be there. We knew a lot of major companies weren't going to have a lot of presentation there, but we did get some interesting things. One of which including Hideo Kojima coming out on the same. I don't know if he was at TGS or if he was just doing the announcement around the time. But Hideo Kojima actually announced some more details on his upcoming game, Death Stranding. And frankly, I'm kind of surprised that we got details this early. He usually waits like a good year until we actually have something of a gameplay demo before he gives us any details on it. And story details especially. He doesn't really go into those. He lets you kind of discover them on your own. But in this article that we actually got from Anime News Network, we actually did get a couple of details. Not much. I'm just going to preface that right here now. Not much, people. We don't know our main character or anything like that. But Kojima mentions that the game's name originates from a particular phenomenon called, if I'm not saying this right, thank you, cetacean stranding. Basically, where dolphins and whales wash up on land and die. And granted, there's a reason why it's called Death Stranding, because it's not just those. It's tons of animals that are showing up on shore and dying. And then we also did get the genre that Death Stranding is going to be. We all kind of expected that he wasn't going to go back into the stealth genre, and it's officially confirmed. It is going to be an action genre game that will have open world elements and, to quote Kojima, some degrees of freedom. Some can mean a lot of things. I know that people are going to point that out to me, but that's the way it went. So let's go ahead and get into our thoughts on it. I'm surprised Hideo didn't need to necessarily come out at all at this point. He could have easily waited a year when we had more, and he could have gone a little bit more into detail. But this is also, I think, the most he's ever gone into story. I mean, for Metal Gear Solid 2, he threw us all for a left hook with what he was going to do with that. Solid 3, to some extent, he did as well. I think 4, we got a little bit more details than the other two, but this one is interesting because it's the first time where he's actually kind of disclosed the meaning behind it and given us at least something that will be through that connected to the story in Death Stranding.
Well, I think part of it may be because since Kojima's more or less starting fresh, he's probably thinking, okay, let's get away from kind of the conspiracy stuff that Metal Gear is known for, because given that it deals with a lot of conspiracy, there would naturally be a lot of secrets you want to keep in that the player would reveal. Whereas this one, I think it's he's wanting to try a different approach to telling a story through games than what he was able to do in things like Metal Gear or Zone of the Enders or even the earlier titles. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just why he's probably opening up a little bit, because he figures, okay, well, this is where it's coming from. Kind of trying to give an idea of what he's wanting to explore. I mean, the idea of cetacean stranding is pretty clear when you take a look at the early concept trailers, especially when you look at the black sand, obviously alluding to things like oil spills and stuff like that, which causes a lot of problems with marine life. So, which honestly, he's dealt with. He's dealt with stuff like that in Metal Gear games. Yeah, but I think this one he might be going for more of an environmental message rather than just, because even with the big shell, it had some environmental stuff, but still was very much part of the other conspiracy of basically AI. Actually, the thing I was bringing up was the plot of Metal Gear 2. The reason why the doctor gets abducted in that one is because he has developed I think it was called Oilex. It was something to be able to make gas cheaper, kind of thing. So he's dealt with these kinds of subjects before, and I think you and me have already talked about this, Romney. We both agree this looks like it's going to have a more of an environmental tinge to it. Yeah, just hopefully it's not Hideo Kojima's version of Captain Planet. I mean, especially when you consider the fact that one of the running motifs is ropes. By your powers combined, you're officially on drugs. Well, that's why I'm kind of hoping it doesn't go that route. But when you think in terms of one of the major motifs being ropes and how it's connected to other people, I'm guessing it's very much environmental. Oh, we're connected to the environment. Everything we do to the environment will come back to us, so on and so forth. We're all connected, that sort of thing. Very much kind of a more eco-environmental message that may be delivered in a more subtle, more eloquent way, or in an incredibly confusing way. Honestly, with Hideo Kojima, you could basically flip a coin and it'll probably land on its side.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's the way he rolls. And I completely keep forgetting to do this, and chat reminds me. We are also being joined by live chat, and we are so thankful to have you guys here. So hello, chat. I'm sorry. I will get better at this and give you guys a proper introduction. I'm just used to the way I do things. So with that being said, Alex, you're kind of the non-Kojima fan. You're getting into him. But Death Stranding, you're basically coming into this without any history of Kojima.
Yeah.
You're coming into this fresh. So
yeah.
Given what you're hearing about this, and given you've seen the trailer at this point, I think.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on what has been disclosed?
It's pretty interesting so far, but given this is a game and we're still probably fairly early on in production here, it's hard to say because I've got a feeling that we're going to probably see some more changes come about as the game begins to evolve and take its shape. But it is interesting to see where Kojima will take the story. I mean, I don't know how he necessarily operates as a game director, but knowing that he has such a studious background in film production, essentially, that I kind of do wonder maybe he kind of approaches it more like a film where he'll essentially write the script first and then start forming the gameplay elements. I'm really not sure. But
I can answer that. He does.
Okay. So it makes sense that where he might want to take the story from here, and it'll be interesting to see where he decides to evolve the gameplay mechanics around this idea.
Mm-hmm. I mean, nothing against Hideo. I mean, he goes with what he knows, and so usually he's culminated these stories that basically get made months before any kind of engine is implemented on them. I mean, the other thing that I was actually able to check on the matter was there was possible talk that Death Stranding would be not a complete departure, but an evolution of on an evolution of the Fox engine, which he still has a lot of the base code for. So at that point, that might be an interesting thing to do, is to continue to evolve. But usually when it comes to engines and things like that, I'm not saying that he doesn't get involved, because he does. But the bottom line is that he's usually focusing more at first on the story and where he wants to actually go with it than he is on the actual physical elements. So with that being said, I mean, like I said, this is a possible new evolution to the Fox engine, and really the only person here that has seen the Fox engine completely. I mean, how do you feel about that, Romney? That this could be a step up, not necessarily a brand new implementation, but an evolution of the Fox engine?
Honestly, I don't really have too many thoughts, since all we really have to go up is the concept trailer, which, given that whole movies are made now using high-quality CG, doesn't really give a lot to look at. The Fox engine, at least based on my experience with it, and granted, I played the PS3 version, which was already limited, it's very much something that is best observed when you're actually looking at gameplay and how it renders things in real time. That's kind of the more litmus test of the Fox engine. That's where the aspects of it basically really shine, where you see things moving in real time, especially even during the cutscenes that are kind of like actually simulating camera work. And so far, until we see any actual gameplay, I can't really make a comment on whether or not this is an evolution of the Fox engine or not. And granted, given that Konami still holds a lot of rights to the Fox engine itself, maybe Kojima may not necessarily have the base code, but
maybe that's why he has to evolve, is because a lot of the base stuff is still owned by Konami.
Yeah, so I know he's been working heavily with Sony, adapting some of the engines used for things like Uncharted and a lot of the other AAA games that Sony has produced to kind of try to get to that same point where he was at. And given stuff like the Uncharted games and how they evolved over time, it's in pretty good hands. And so it's very much, from what I've heard, I believe it was an engine created by Sucker Punch that the initial concept trailer was rendered in. So I can't really say whether or not it'll be comparable to the Fox engine until we actually start seeing how the game will actually play and how things will actually move in real time and how the player will get to interact with this world that Kojima's creating. Unless he pulls a David Cage.
Yeah, it's just a little surprising to me that we've gotten details this soon. Nothing against Kojima. However you want to distribute this stuff, that's on you. I can't tell you how to do your dang job. But at the same time, it's just out of style for him. I mean, the only time that I remember things happening this early is we got this huge E3 dump on Solid 4. especially the fact that there was going to be direct references back to Snatcher, direct references. I think there was a direct reference back to Zone of the Enders in Solid 4 as well. So at that point, we knew the world that we were walking into far sooner than we ever knew it for Solid 2 and Solid 3. And again, that's completely up to Kojima. If he needs to kind of set that tone, then he needs to set it.
Well, yeah, especially considering that he's no longer working on any established franchise that has things that people know are going to expect it. You're not going to see Snake. You're not going to see anything even remotely related to Metal Gear. He's starting fresh, and so he's probably thinking, okay, let's go back to basics. Kind of like a good example. It's kind of like when Jon Favreau stepped away from blockbusters and then made the movie Chef, where it's just like, okay, let's step away from the big blockbusters where we have to be cloak and dagger and just go back to telling a story that isn't as complex, kind of go back to basics almost, which with Kojima, again, could go either way. Either he will go fully out there, or maybe he'll just kind of approach it like a filmmaker thing. Okay, let's try telling a different kind of story in a different, for lack of a better term, film genre than what I've been doing for the past 20 or so years.
Exactly. And really, I think that the only thing that we can get from this is that it's going to be a departure from what Kojima's usually used to telling. And at that point, I'm not against it because, filmmakers evolve, and this is how they do it.
Unless Kojima decides to take a bunch of cues from Takahashi's Mermaid series.
He can take a lot of praises from wherever at this point, and I think we would still get the game just because we want to support the guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sources you could even pull from, especially considering this is going to be dealing with stuff, an environmental measure, especially since it's dealing with based on stuff like Cetacean Stranding and a lot of these other factors. I'm definitely curious. Maybe it'll probably be this is just a ballpark guess, not even a theory.
Yeah.
Where it may try to be something kind of akin to The Happening, except told decently. Like the story that we see in The Happening, where it's basically the Earth striking back at all the people who've polluted it and reduced it to crap, but told in a way that isn't basically Mark Wahlberg talking to plastic plants.
I mean, I'm not against that concept, but again, it's too soon to be able to tell all that. I also do kind of like an Aliens angle, because I still love the end of that trailer where you actually see like beings floating in the sky, and it's like, oh well, the aliens invaded and they destroyed us roughly.
Yeah, just watch when this turns out to be like his take on Hitchhiker's Guide somehow, where the things we saw floating were the dolphins trying to escape planet Earth before it's destroyed.
That would be awesome. So with that, final thoughts before we move on into the next story that we have tonight. So no final thoughts? All right. Let's go ahead and move into the next story here. And the next one is Steam is back in the news. And Steam is back in the news in kind of a 50-50 kind of manner. So basically, Steam is starting to crack down on what they're calling dodgy devs. Developers that are basically, for lack of a better word, creating false accounts to rate their game highly so that they get very positive reviews on Steam, and therefore people want to try it. It's a piece of crap, and then they move on, kind of thing. But the developers have basically made it so this is still being rated very positive kind of thing on Steam. The other thing, too, that they're also kind of cracking down on is Kickstarter backers who are kind of doing the same thing. So backers who are basically wanting a guaranteed CD key, they're also trying to hype up this game, whether it be in early access or whether we're waiting for it, to be able to make sure that it gets the proper positive reception that they think the game deserves. And in some cases, this is blown up. This is one of the reasons why we have such a problem with the green light system on Steam, is because a lot of those games are not very good. And they're very shoddily developed. And therefore, when they start getting negative reviews, then we start hearing about people like Jim Sterling having to step up and say, we have a right to be able to criticize your game, kind of thing. And he's not the only one that does it. And so a lot of people are actually kind of 50-50 on this, on whether or not Valve should be legitimately involved in the process, or should they just simply let the thing go on. And I'm going to say this honestly, it is their platform. It is their market space. They can act however they want on the matter. And frankly, this is one of those things that makes their system look dodgy. It isn't even them, but it makes them look dodgy for allowing the prospect to happen. So I'm actually for Steam kind of cracking down on these guys.
Well, you're kind of burying the lead here. To kind of explain what Steam is actually implementing before we get into the opinions, basically what Valve has implemented into Steam is now the only reviews that will actually be shown when people are searching for games are reviews posted by people who have actually paid for the game through Steam. So this is someone who's actually bought the game, played it, and came back to do a review. Those are the only reviews that will actually be featured and will actually dictate kind of what ratings are shown, is from people who've actually paid for the game and played it. And that's why a lot of more shady developers are starting to sweat a little bit, because now they can't inflate their game's hype without basically sinking money into buying their own game. And that's kind of what Valve is hoping to address.
Which, if you look at the system itself, it makes sense. If they paid for it and they're playing it and they like it, then it makes sense that they should be able to review it. But in some cases with these accounts, they are literally making it and rating the game highly. And if you go into detail on these, you can see they've played 0 hours in this game. And that's what I think that's what Valve is really trying to crack down on, is that if you're going to rate something you haven't even played it, you shouldn't be able to rate it. Kind of thing. Or if you haven't even paid for it, you shouldn't be able to rate it.
Mm-hmm. However, there are some drawbacks. Because it's limited to people who've only bought the game through Steam. That means anybody who tries to do a review because they bought a physical copy and put in the license key and then kind of uses Steam as kind of an in-between, or if it's someone who is a Kickstarter backer that received the Steam key as part of their award, those reviews aren't really going to actually be giving any real light of day, since those won't actually affect the rating that's displayed on the statistics, basically, when someone is browsing through the Steam store.
Yeah, they're basically trying to say that these are sources that we can't necessarily, obviously are biased, can't necessarily be trusted at this point, and we're basically letting the community kind of dictate whether or not this is a good game, not necessarily the Kickstarter backers saying that it's very positive kind of thing. So I agree with you, Romney. This is a 50-50 thing because, like with most Steam system revisions and things like that, people find loopholes and people will find a way to be able to do it.
Yeah, and Valve has even said that they're not going to bar developers from distributing CD keys for people who, especially if it's part of the promotion. However, they are going to crack down on, say, like multiple distributions that are basically like batch distributions to try to inflate scores and so on and so forth. They are going to try to look at that and say, okay, this guy's getting a lot of really good reviews in a really short amount of time. Something's fishy. Let's take a look at it.
Exactly. Or like, and especially a lot of the cases that are actually being brought up are Greenlight ones. And, well, if you talk to anybody on the internet about Greenlight, they don't all have nice things to say. And so it's a little fishy for them to just say, well, this Greenlight game is absolutely awesome. That usually doesn't happen. It's diamond in the rough kind of thing. So, Romney, let's go ahead and just go into your thoughts, since you've already been kind of speaking on this. Your thoughts on, should Steam be doing this? Should Steam stay out of it?
Honestly, I think it's a good idea, because that's a problem we've been seeing, not just with Steam, but with a lot of sites in general. I mean, you see it on YouTube videos, for crying out loud, where people who haven't even watched the content will go in, make a fussy comment. I mean, that's half the reason why I left Movie Pilot, is because people would comment on my reviews without having watched the goddamn review. And so I support Steam in this endeavor, because it makes sense. Okay, someone who's actually bought the game, which means it's an opinion that a potential customer is going to want to hear from, is going to basically have the sway of the review. And it even says that scores won't be published until at least one review by someone who actually purchased or actually had a copy of the game is published, to determine kind of what scores, whether it says positive, mixed, or negative, so on and so forth. And so, while it's not perfect, I do applaud Valve for trying to implement a system like this to kind of cut down on either people taking down games, to either trying to inflate them to scam other people, or trying to take down games just because the developer said something that they didn't agree with, which we have also seen on the platform to very disastrous degrees because of the sense of mob justice. So this at least kind of puts a nice wrench into that sort of thing, so that way there's an actual sense that you're actually getting real reviews from people who've actually played the games. Now, I know people who who are Kickstarter backers may be a little bit upset not being able to get their opinions seen per se, because they got a Kickstarter key, and so there are some things they can kind of work around a little bit. But I can understand why Valve is taking the approach they are taking, because you either have people who are Kickstarter backers who want to hype the game up because they want to see it completed, or people who are backers who are basically ready to scuttle the ship. I mean, look at the madness around Mighty Number 9.
Yeah, Mighty Number 9 is one of those many that we can bring up that have some issues. I actually found it interesting that this particular story brings up Goat Simulator, and I can only begin. I don't know all. I believe that there's at least some degree of controversy around that as well. I mean, we brought up, what was the one that we brought up that the Kickstarter budget got blown at a strip club? Was it Ant Simulator?
Yeah, Ant Simulator.
Yeah. So at that point, that one deserved to have a dozen bad things said about it. Alex, your thoughts on Steam's revisions to their policies?
You guys have pretty much said it all, I think, at this point. It is a good idea to keep the integrity of the review system and make sure that people don't shadily either raise the score, deflate the score out of vendetta, right? But people who legitimately buy it. I don't think many people are going to go out of their way to make the purchase just to simply either to review it negatively for the sake of reviewing it negatively or positively for the sake of positively. I'm not saying nobody will ever do that. There's weirdos all over the place, but at the very least with this, I think it's going to cut out a lot of the BS that might come through review systems unchecked.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as much as I want this to be an end-all, beat-all, that this is going to fix every problem, obviously there's going to be loopholes, and people are going to find their way around it, and they're going to start exploiting that system all over again. So that's going to happen, but at least this is why I'm on Steam's side here, is because the bottom line is, even though Steam is not involved with the people who are doing this, it's happening on their marketplace, which in turn it makes them responsible for it. And frankly, it's their property. So they should be able to say, no, you're not going to do this crap anymore. And we are going to sanction it to some extent. I'm actually kind of surprised that one of the things I don't think that was in here was kind of cracking down on the number of keys that said Kickstarters get.
That's partially because Kickstarters are kind of the unintended, basically people who are Kickstarter backers are kind of the unintended affected party, since Valve was more or less focusing on the dodgy developers that are basically trying to inflate their skulls. The Kickstarter people just seem to be an unintended consequence of this implementation, which Valve may address down the line, and they may even create it. Okay, well, rather than putting something that I could just sit on the Kickstarter bill, just create something that allows the developers to get feedback or something to that regard. I mean, I'm sure there'll still be forums that people can discuss the games. It just won't affect the score as displayed in the Steam store.
Exactly, but it's one of those things that I get the Steam wants to be open on this matter, but frankly, they could actually crack down on this a little bit and say you can only give this many keys with the Kickstarters, and therefore the Kickstarter pages have to reflect that. The fact that they're keeping open-ended is a good thing on their part, but I could totally see if this got out of hand, Steam coming down and saying, okay, well, you have 500 keys, and those are the ones that you can give out, and that's all you get, kind of thing. I'm not saying 500 isn't necessarily a justified number here, but they could easily say we're only going to give out so many codes for this.
Well, yeah, and that would depend on whatever. And that's kind of where it gets kind of tricky, whether it's a game that's being self-published or if it's being published through a larger company. That was something that would more fall to their discretion rather than Valve's per se. And that would basically be something that they may want to look at. They want to see, kind of weigh the pros and cons. I don't necessarily see them doing a hard limitation on the amount of keys unless they maybe say talk with the people developing it and distributing it and say, okay, here's how many backers paid for this reward. We're going to lock the limit at that amount of people that paid up to that reward tier, but that could also backfire since Steam keys tend to be kind of on the lower tiers on a lot of Kickstarter rewards as digital copies. So again, there's ways that they could address it, but well, it's going to take a lot more than just a single afternoon for them to kind of come up with a solution.
But this is pretty much telling me that they're taking action, and that's the thing that we need to all take away from this, is that they are tired of their system being abused, and so they're now looking for ways for it to not be abused. So sorry, people who are actually abusing the system, you aren't going to be able to do it for that much longer, at least for a good 6 months.
Yeah, Valve can't keep paying the therapy bills for the poor platform.
I was going to say, does Gabe Newell get any of that? Maybe we could put that towards Valve's fund to be able to count to 3. Would that be Would that be too much? All right, final thoughts before we move on into the next story, which is kind of a double header. I don't know how Alex is going to feel about me merging these two stories, but I thought it was relevant.
That's fine.
Okay. So the next story that we have is, like I said, it's a double header. It's kind of our Nintendo talk for the evening, but it involves Sega. And so we're actually going to tackle these stories separately because they're not necessarily all that involved with each other, but Sega did involve themselves a bit with Nintendo. In particular, so I don't remember which fan game it was that actually got tribute for it. Green Hill Paradise Act 2.
Right.
They actually got a response from Sega on the matter, because I believe that they just wanted them to know that this game was out there, and I believe the Game Grumps have played it. Have you seen this playlist at all, Alex?
I've seen a play of the level itself, but I haven't actually seen the Grumps play it yet, so okay. I don't know where it is.
And so at that point, their response was roughly to say, BRB, DMCA time. Nah, just kidding. Keep making great stuff, Sonic fans. And so at that point, a lot of people went, ooh, shots fired at Nintendo. And I'm going to go one step further. I don't think it was just Sega shooting at Nintendo. I think they were shooting at the industry a little bit because, when it comes to Japanese developers, they are the minority that will allow stuff like this to happen. Because, we already know the reputation of Nintendo doing this. Capcom has a bit of a reputation for doing this.
Although they've turned around a little bit, though, especially when you consider that they've published stuff like Street Fighter X Mega Man, so...
Yeah, so they've gotten better on this. Konami, we don't know, because Konami's cracking down in so many ways that we don't know how this is actually going to affect us in the long run. But we have, obviously, a lot of companies saying, we don't care. We're still going to DMCA you, bottom line. Whereas Sega is one of those few companies that says, go ahead and make this stuff. As long as you're not outright, stealing our product and trying to repurpose it, we don't care. Because fan games technically are what sell.
That's often how they find people to work on stuff. Christian Whitehead, for example, who worked on the Sonic CD port, made fan games, and that's Sega's just like, hey, we like what you're doing. Would you like to help us port Sonic CD for the new consoles? And
that was the other half joke I was going to make was, well, Sonic's looking for people. And look, guys, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a case of, hey, keep making games because we have no idea what we're doing. Please help.
Exactly. We want to hire people who actually know what they're doing so that we don't have to re-educate our current staff or fire them. So at that point, and a lot of people think because of my recent stances on things that I would actually crack down on this. No, I wouldn't. Because in a lot of cases, some great developers and some great hands on these projects come from games like this. Especially things like Game Jolt is a great way to be able to show I have a passion for this property and I can innovate it in a unique way. And in some cases, like with Nintendo, you can submit it to Nintendo all you want. I've talked to people who submitted stuff to Nintendo. They usually just reject you. Because they're just like, well, sorry, you're a filthy American and we don't care about what you do, kind of thing. Or we'll relegate you off to Nintendo of America and not care about what you do.
In fairness, though, that's generally standard practice when you try and submit anything to any media company anywhere.
Or even just artists in general. My dad would often tell the story about how he would try sending lyrics to Willie Nelson and the envelope would come back unopened.
Yeah, exactly. That does happen, but there are occasional people who step out. I know, for example, Blizzard Entertainment likes to be able to step out, and they do look at these mod makers. And in some cases where those mod makers go black, it's because they probably got hired, or they probably violated the terms of service, and they're no longer on the market. So, it's a 50-50 thing, but I do encourage Sega to continue to do this because, well, you're going to probably find some people who are going to be able to help you to turn Sonic around and maybe even help you out with some of your other properties that you have. You have things other than Sonic, right, Sega? You have things other than Sega or other than Sonic.
Sure, they have Hatsune Miku.
Or Phantasy Star for the Japanese audience exclusively.
See, he gets the cookie. You don't, Alex. Because I get that they have Hatsune Miku. I was trying to point out that they have a ginormous vault of other properties that they do nothing with. Trying very hard not to yell right now, people. So yeah, let's go ahead and start with Alex on this one. Your thoughts on Nintendo coming out,
Sega,
Sega coming out, maybe making a jab at Nintendo. I'm still saying I think they made a jab at the industry.
kind of a bit both, perhaps, but it's nice that Sega wants to play nice, play ball with all of these fan creators, because a lot of fan games are really creative. There's countless Sonic the Hedgehog mods. I mean, there's games like Amy Rose in Sonic the Hedgehog, Sally Acorn in Sonic the Hedgehog. There's HD remasters of Sonic 2 out there. So I know I bring up Sonic, but that's like the most predominant of the Sega properties that get sort of these fan games. But there's also
a perfect example of a Sonic fan game we played was Freedom Planet.
Yes, which began as, in fairness, that's what began.
It started as a Sonic game.
As a Sonic game and evolved into something completely new. But in terms of strict fan games, there's so many creative ones out there. Even on the Nintendo side, I've seen some creative Pokemon hacks, and I've seen some creative Mario hacks, usually the Kaizo ones, in fairness. And
yeah,
you'll never get me to play a Kaizo game, but it's endlessly entertaining to watch Gerard play a Kaizo Mario's. So I think I know there's a lot of potential issue when you just don't really enforce your trademark. That gets into trademark law, and that's a whole other can of worms there, unfortunately. But
yep.
I do want to see the industry start to change a little more and embrace it. Because it's not 1985 anymore, and we don't need to have the draconian stranglehold rules that you need this official seal of approval to produce games.
Yeah, I don't think Nintendo got your memo, buddy.
Well, to kind of play devil's advocate here, we do have two different scenarios we're looking at. With Nintendo, they're a first-party company. They want to make sure that their characters remain on their platforms that they manufacture. So that way, they're basically the only way you get Zelda, the only way you get Pokemon, the only way you get Metroid. Whereas Sega is in the interesting position that it's a third-party platform, meaning that you can play a Sonic game on pretty much almost any console. You can play, you could get Genesis collections for every single platform, including PC. So it's very much a difference of scenarios where something like Nintendo, where it would be in their best interest to try to protect their property so that it stays exclusive to their platforms. Sega doesn't have that sort of advantage/handicap, and so it isn't as financially risky for them to encourage fan works on other platforms because they're already everywhere. So it's a case of, it makes no difference to us.
Yeah, fair enough, but at the same time, a lot of these fan works are out there, and, well, it's not, again, I think I said this in one of our previous videos, it's I have not seen the headline, sales plummet on main game while fan games triumph, right? That hasn't happened. I understand the need to protect your brand and protect your IPs, but at the same time, a lot of these fan games, when they're just made out of the passion of a person's heart and not for profit, they're generally fine. They're entertaining YouTube videos or something, or people just play them for fun on emulators, and they don't really seem to hurt the main brand. Sometimes they do something that the main brand isn't doing. Lord knows Nintendo's not doing a whole lot with Metroid besides Federation Force.
I get your argument there, Alex, but one of the things that comes to my mind on the matter is that bad publicity is still bad publicity. And so in a lot of cases where you have, I'm not saying that every fan game is bad. I mean, for crying out loud, then that would mean that I'd have to say Freedom Planet's bad, and I'm not willing to say that. But then you have the occasional one, I can't remember what it was called, Sonic Dreams, where that got a lot of focus, and that, I would say, in essence, is bad publicity. From Sega's point of view. And so at that point, yeah, they might want to crack down on that, but here's the thing, they could also just let it be what it is. And I honestly think that the best way to be able to handle that is just say, well, that's one fan's interpretation. That's not necessarily our interpretation, but it still can have, I'm not saying that it can affect, it's not going to affect sales numbers right off the bat, but it is definitely going to, let's just say for the sake of argument, a really, for lack of a better term, a sexual kind of Sonic mod went out there, and it was getting mainstream attention. That would matter. that would matter to say.
I hate to say it, but that's probably already happened now. Knowing the Sonic fan
Yeah,
base.
that's the Sonic fan base has come out with stuff much worse than Sonic Dreams Collection.
Well, somebody actually brought to my attention that apparently Chris Chan made Fox News. I didn't even realize he did that.
Of course he has, because
it's Fox News. They'll report on anything.
This is true. Well, welcome to the 24-hour news cycle. But it's just like, really, Chris Chan made the news. I mean, if he made the news on print, that's fine. But he made TV.
Well, keep in mind, it's Fox News.
It's Fox News. Yeah.
Already, half of that name is a bit of an oxymoron. So,
well, so you're basically saying that Fox News is being forever funded by miles Tails per hour?
No, because
I think we've established a new conspiracy here, people. Give us your thoughts in the chat.
I wouldn't say Tails. Probably not quite Eggman. Someone who's also evil, but not nearly as affluent.
Well, you said Fox. There's only one two-tailed fox in the Sega franchise in Sonic.
Give the internet time. Give them time.
Give them time.
I don't need to give them time. All you have to do is go to fanfiction.
No, actually, it's not Tails. It's Ray the Flying Squirrel, because he's pissed off that Sega's left him out of all the games, and he calls it Fox to throw shade at Tails, so that way people think Tails is the one funding it, but it's in fact Ray the Squirrel and Mighty the Armadillo working together.
Brilliant.
You see what I have to deal with, people? They have nothing, and they create a Pandora's box out of nothing. So, congratulations. This is why you guys wrote Genji Ken. This is why you do that.
Those posters in City Escape and Sonic Generations, they weren't missing posters. They were wanted posters for those two characters.
They were warnings. They were warnings.
Yeah. So yeah, my final thoughts on the matter are simply, I think Sega's doing the right thing here. I don't think it's necessarily in the wrong for them to come out and say we don't appreciate these guys misusing our intellectual property, because when you look at the grand scheme of things, a lot of the more offensive stuff is actually still in the minority. A lot of it is still just we're doing Sonic 2, but with this unique twist kind of thing. So at that point, I think that they're taking this on the best way that they can, and that's really all we can ask on the matter. So, with that being said, final thoughts for you guys before we move on into the Nintendo story.
Yeah, I don't think I said it all, but
all right.
So I think pretty much Sega just has a better way of engaging their fans. I mean, if you look at the kind of stuff that their Sonic Twitter account does on any day, it's very much a case of they may not be able to make good games half the time, but they at least know how to engage the fans in a way that actually makes them laugh.
Well, I'm glad you guys put on your tinfoil hats, because you're going to need them for this next story. I know we said we wouldn't cover this stuff, but enough people sent me this story that I couldn't not say anything about it. And that is that apparently from the Nintendo Europe site, the Zelda Breath of the Wild amiibos might have possibly outed the release date for Breath of the Wild and maybe even the NX. Not even the crickets. Yeah, not even the crickets will acknowledge this. So according to several Nintendo Europe sites, as originally spotted on Reddit, there are right now 3 Breath of the Wild amiibos confirmed. There's going to be a Link, or a regular Link, an Archer Link, and a Guardian. We don't know necessarily what the Guardian is.
Yeah, looking at it, it's Archer Link, Rider Link, and a Guardian.
Rider Link, there you go. And so at that point, we have these 3 amiibo, and apparently they have a release date set for March 4th, 2017. And a lot of people are and I've read into the comments, I've read the Twitter on this, a lot of people are jumping the gun to saying, well, all these 3 amiibo are obviously connected to Breath of the Wild. So therefore, they're attached to it. So basically what a lot of people are making the justification for is when you purchase Breath of the Wild and maybe even the NX, you are getting these 3 amiibo along with. And I hate to burst people's bubbles, but I can see them giving you 1. I don't see them giving you 3.
Nope.
If anything, the Guardian will probably be attached, but they'll keep the other 2 links out on the open market.
Yeah, or maybe they'll bundle one not with the NX, but with the retail copy of Breath of the Wild, much like they did Twilight Princess.
So at that point, a lot of people have speculated that March 4th, 2017 is the NX release date. Okay, that's fine. That's close to what Nintendo has already told us, because they've said March 2017 is what they're looking at, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. If you want to say that it's officially March 4th, cool. I'm still sticking with March 2017. I just don't know if I'm going to hang my hopes on 3 Amiibo, if that makes any sense to people. And again, I'm still waiting on an NX reveal before I cover anything else.
Until further notice, I'm sticking to my hashtag. NX is still a space shuttle until Nintendo says otherwise.
That's a pretty long hashtag, my friend.
Well, he's not going to type out the whole sentence. I mean,
I know.
Who would do that with a hashtag? I mean, unless it's like some old, like, someone who doesn't know how social media works, who types out a whole sentence in a hashtag somehow. It's just, no. Although I keep laughing when the reason I was started chuckling is because I hear the 3 Amiibos, and I'm just thinking, I'd make a joke about... I mean,
we are the Amiibos. We are the 3 Amiibos. They say we are Amiibos of a feather.
I was gonna reference a different movie. It's like, we are the 3 Amiibos. We are the 3 Amiibos.
Yes.
We are the 3 I'm not gonna hold it the whole time.
No.
I mean,
I'm not
I
even
could.
gonna try and sing that high note.
I mean, I could, but then I wouldn't be able to speak for the rest of the show.
Yes. So, I mean, let's actually get into this here. Do we actually think that these 3 Amiibos have leaked the NX's release date?
They cracked the code!
Yes and no. I mean, it just confirms that, okay, we know they're shooting for a March launch date, but what a lot of people tend to forget is that Breath of the Wild is coming out for Wii U as well, so it's very much a case of that it could either be ahead of the NX release or just simply ahead of Breath of the Wild's release. Honestly, there's a lot of ways you can interpret this, and so it's very much a case of, well, it just confirms that they're shooting for a March 2017 release date, and that's about it.
Yeah, that pretty much is saying what we already knew, which was March 2017 is the release date for the NX. And here's the thing. March 4th, 2017, we're all jumping the gun that that's going to be the NX's release date. For all we know, I mean, usually with consoles, the controllers come out first, and they come out a week before. So at that point, these Amiibos might be coming out a week or 2 before so that they can sell out. So it's not necessarily saying that this is the exact release date for the NX.
Yeah, especially when they got to work out the guiding system so that way you can make it to Mars.
Exactly. I'm going to start up a new hashtag. The NX is the Enterprise. Let's just go ahead and do that.
Gee, it got an upgrade. From Space Shuttle to Enterprise.
Make it so, number one. Alex, your thoughts on the March 4th, 2017 release date?
Well, I see your NX is the Enterprise. Well, then NX is the Mega Fortress. Whatever the ship and power. The
Astro Megazord. Astro Megazord.
Astro Megazord. For God's sake.
That's the hashtag now.
You know what? I'll do you both one better. If you're gonna go Power Rangers, NX is Terra Venture. There. That's the upgrade.
Okay. I'm doubting this.
Rangers lost NX. Go ahead. Sorry.
Might as well be. I'm doubting this is the release date. I don't know what it says in the code. I just know people have way too much time on their hands to start delving through code to find weird shit like this.
Yeah, I got one more. NX is Space Colony Arc.
Very nice.
NX is the Arc. What, the Autobots? Okay, I'm old.
Yes, you are.
Well, I mean, it would make sense. I mean, they already have a Sonic title confirmed for it, so.
And obviously, we're not the only ones that are actually making this concept. We already have people in the chat. It doesn't necessarily mean the NX will be out on the same date. Exactly, people, because, like I said, controllers and other custom stuff come out either a week or 2 earlier than the actual console's debut. So at that point, these Amiibos might be the exact same thing. I mean, if they were legit, if all three of them were legit connected to Breath of the Wild, as in they had specific functions for it, okay, fine. I don't see them giving you all three via pre-order.
At least not all at the same place. I mean, if they were all by pre-order, it would be limited to retailer, like one at GameStop, one at Amazon, one at Best Buy, kind of like how most companies do it.
Okay, if they did that, then I'd be okay with it. You know, like an Amazon exclusive, a GameStop exclusive. I'm okay with that. But a lot of people are already making the assumption that all three are attached to Breath of the Wild, and that doesn't make sense from a money standpoint for Nintendo, especially since they aren't going to be able to sell this at a loss. They actually will need to sell it at cost. Mm-hmm. So that's something else to keep in mind. Final thoughts on this being the possible NX release date. There really isn't much to go on, but wow, enough people brought this to my attention that we had to talk about it.
Yeah, I guess in the words of many exasperated main characters, tell us something we don't know.
Yes. So with that, let's go ahead and actually no, that doesn't. I thought that wrapped up our tech portion, but it doesn't. So let's go ahead and do this, because this is another thing that I got pelted with, and mostly along the lines of, have you done it yet? And that is that Mass Effect Andromeda is holding auditions. Auditions from NX is a coffee cup. Really? That's a downgrade. Mass Effect Andromeda has, or BioWare has officially reported that, like with Star Wars The Old Republic, they are reaching out everywhere to be able to get voiceover work done for their upcoming title, Mass Effect Andromeda. And so they're not just reaching out to the usual stables of voice actors, the usual agents, stuff like that. They are actually reaching out to fans, to video games journalists. We already have a couple of journalists that are already submitting auditions. I have no problem admitting this because people asked me enough about it. Yes, I submitted an audition to Mass Effect Andromeda. And
I'm going to be doing it too. In case anybody asks as well, I'm going to be submitting one as well.
And so is Alex, because peer pressure.
No, I won't.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are just like, oh, we don't like this idea because they did it with the Old Republic, and some people just sound kind of worse than others. I love it, because it gives you a scope into how big this world is going to be. And frankly, nothing against the stable voice actors. Guys, I'm trying to be one. But at the same time, you know, you do actually need to let the little guys in to see what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if they do a good enough performance, then the studios take notice. So I do like the fact that people are doing this. And I know a lot of them are doing it just because they're Mass Effect fans, and that's fine. Me, not so much. I'm a Mass Effect fan, but I have professional aspirations on that. But yeah, I love the fact that BioWare is doing it, and I love the fact that they've done it now with 2 games. Somebody actually tried to bring to my attention that I guess they tried to do it with Dragon Age Inquisition, didn't really work out, but good on them. They should be doing this. This is exactly where the market's kind of going for voiceover. Romney, your thoughts on BioWare reaching out to everybody?
Oh, I think it's pretty cool, and it's definitely, and from a business standpoint, it's a good way to drum up hype for a highly anticipated property. I mean, we've seen the same thing happen before with The Force Awakens, and how they had an open casting call that anybody could submit auditions. Even I submitted an audition to it, but guess who got the parts? Established actors that were already there. And while BioWare has a better track record of actually incorporating people who've done these sorts of auditions into the games, it's very much, I mean, let's call it what it is. It is a publicity stunt, and it's one that's implemented pretty well because it gets people talking about the game, gets people excited for Andromeda, and it also is a way to release some story details without basically doing a press release. It's like, okay, here's some small bits and pieces to kind of inform you about the world in the context of doing an audition, like when you're informing an actor kind of what they're going into. Exactly.
And look, I know that you're going to get legit fan works that are going to sound like this, but they do. I mean, I'm trying to remember. Did I get a waiver for this one that I actually had to sign to some extent? I think I did. And so at that point, you know, that they are reserving the right to say, no, we're not going to utilize your stuff. But thank you for being a fan, kind of thing.
But yeah, and it even says, even if you are chosen, it says that there's no guarantee that even if you are flown out, because the grand prize is that you get flown out to BioWare's recording studio, depending on where you live, whichever's closest to you, to record dialogue, and even says in the full contest rules that there's no guarantee that even if you win, even if you go into record lines, there's no guarantee that anything you record will even make it into the final product.
Exactly, because they can't guarantee that at this point. Yes, Mass Effect Andromeda is going to be a big game, but for all we know, the quest that you're actually a part of gets canned. It's entirely possible that could happen. But here's the thing. I think BioWare will fight like hell to keep you involved because they do actually appreciate their community involvement. That's one of those things that I cannot fault BioWare for. I can fault EA all I want, but I can't fault BioWare for it. Alex, your thoughts on them going into open auditions for everybody?
Well, again, I want to emphasize, no, I'm not going to be going out for this. I'm not really I'm not an actor, so not really much good for me to do so.
Alex, you're going to be the tough mercenary, and you are going to like it.
Okay. You guys do remember I barely made it through those Genshiken recordings, and I had a very minor role in that. So I think it's a great idea, though. I really do. I would hope that, that they'll try and use quite a bit of the fan recordings that they'll bring out. Just, I'm not expecting fans to land the leading roles unless they're just really that damn good. Probably not, but at least some background characters, some minor bits. I think that'd be fun for anybody who's really just into it, a little bit into acting.
I was gonna say, I hope Aldo gets it because I think he would sound like a really awesome Turian. And I almost want Alex to legit audition because I would love to hear like a Krogan with his voice. That would be awesome. Or like what are the jellyfish ones? Hanar? Is that what they're called?
Well, I'm not entirely sure, but that does bring up one point that is a rule of the competition that before people get excited, the first if any of you listeners are going to audition for this, you have until September 28th. It's currently the 17th at the time we're recording this, so about 11 days or so. And the key thing to remember is that they're saying is no sound effects, no music. They just want a clear recording of your voice, and also they stress no accents. Don't try to disguise your voice because it's kind of a case of they basically want your pure regular voice. That's kind of at least going on a lot of the suggestions they gave is because, well, when people try to do accents, especially if they don't know how to do an accent well, it can lead to a lot of disasters. Like what I just said right there. It tried going into an accent, it fell apart.
Yeah. You should hear me on Dracachetto. I can't ever keep a straight accent. I always, I'll bounce between Italian and Russian, and we have we call it my Rush-Italian accent.
we call it Berkstralian or other things. Yes.
Berkstralian, Rush-Italian. I always bounce. I'll try and do a New Jersey, and then suddenly it'll turn into some amalgamation of Cockney and.
Well, you were able to maintain the Southern accent for Big Boss pretty consistently, so there's that.
All right.
Although Metal Gear fans are mad at you for giving him such a hick-sounding accent, but go on.
It reminds me of the general in Rambo, the one's I taught Rambo how to kill, how to shoot.
So somebody actually recommended that I need to show you stuff of Big Boss, the Big Boss, and that way you would understand how wrong you got it. But we'll get there in good time.
Well, the thing is, I don't see what showing a Bruce Lee movie would actually educate with Metal Gear. The joke is that there's a Bruce Lee movie called The Big Boss.
Let's give them all a round of applause. All right, so any additional thoughts on this matter? I'm so happy that BioWare is doing it. I think that's pretty much all of our consensus. That's great, especially to those who don't necessarily get a whole lot of publicity. There are struggling voice actors that this really does benefit, especially if they win. Mm-hmm. So at that point, good on you, BioWare. I think the fact that you do this is great.
And for the actors who are just getting out there, it's one thing to put on your portfolio.
Yep. And another thing I like that they also stress that it's not limited to male or female. They said hey, man or woman, feel free to audition. They keep the names in terms specifically gender ambiguous. So for all we know, there could be a female top mercenary. I mean, if you look at how much of a badass Fem Shep can be, I'm sure BioWare would make it work.
Now, final thoughts on this before we move on into the next discussion here, because there's not a whole lot we can talk about it. good on you, BioWare. This is great. Let's go ahead and move on into the next story because I don't really think there's a whole lot we can do here.
And we're on the second hour anyway, so.
We are on the second hour, and we do actually have some entertainment stuff before we talk about Digimon Adventure Try. We will actually have a special guest for that, so you guys can look forward to that. The first story that we have has been a recent announcement that is not all that surprising. So supposedly there is now a Harley Quinn movie in the works with Margot. Is it Robbie or Robbie?
Robbie. It's Robbie. With
Margot Robbie as the cast as Harley Quinn. And so already we were getting people asking, how would we feel about this considering our overall reception for Suicide Squad wasn't very favorable. I mean, we had Alex speaking positively and me and Romney spoke positively to some extent, but we did have problems with it. But obviously there isn't a whole lot of information to go on because they're just saying it's in the works, which means there isn't a script, there isn't a director, there isn't anything like that. So our thoughts, do we actually think there should be a Harley Quinn movie?
Well, to kind of give an idea of why this is breaking, because kind of what Margot Robbie has signed with Warner Brothers is what's known as a first look deal. Now, a first look deal is pretty much any contract containing a clause granting, usually for a fee or some other consideration that's basically within a specific time frame, some sort of preemption right, whether it's right of first refusal, right of first offer. It can also be called right of first negotiation. That's pretty much the deal she's signed with Warner Brothers, where they've got the right to basically bring the project to her first to give her the chance to say yes or no. And that's kind of what we've got here is the idea of, she may stay on to play Harley Quinn for future movies. And according to the Hollywood Reporter, the story that we're looking at is that she would also be producing the yet untitled spinoff if it actually gets the green light.
Yeah, and at this point, the green light is far from happening. I mean, not Warner Brothers, DC, none have given the green light here, obviously, because we don't. This is all conceptual at this point. I think the reason that this is being talked about is because obviously people loved Margot Robbie in Suicide Squad, and therefore they're saying, well, if we did a solo movie with Margot, would you guys be okay to see it? And so they're basically reaching out to people and saying, and basically getting a poll.
Yeah, and there's even some people speculating whether or not it would even be a solo movie or even just a movie highlighting other characters in the DC cinematic universe that just happens to have Harley Quinn as the lead. Considering the roster of female villains and heroes that we've got, I mean, aside from, you have people like Batgirl, you've got Huntress, Black Canary. There's a lot of characters they could explore with this. And honestly, my feelings about it all go down to the same thing. Who's going to write it? Who's going to direct it? And are they actually capable of telling a good story? And that's really what it comes down to.
I don't know Margot Robbie's career, as a science, but are they going to be able to rein her in if they need to be able to get a better scene out of it?
In her case, she's actually not the kind of actress you have to worry about reining in, because the other roles I've seen her in, she was also Jane in The Legend of Tarzan. She did a pretty good job. She seems to be the kind of actress that you don't have to do as much to get a good performance out of her. Definitely tends to be kind of one of the more agreeable actors, not say, for lack of a better example, Will Smith, who basically plays Will Smith.
Yeah. So, Alex, your thoughts on a Harley Quinn standalone movie?
Well, as a standalone movie, I don't think Harley Quinn is, dare I say, that interesting of a character enough to warrant her own solo movie, because she's always very much a pair. She always comes with the Joker. That's kind of the basis of her character.
Well,
not entirely. She's actually gotten her own comic series for a couple of years now.
All right. Well, I can't really speak on that, but
in fact, one of the biggest arcs of I'm not trying to be over geeky, you Alex, but just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective, one of the big story arcs they did was she actually legitly broke up with the Joker. And we actually had comics of her dealing with that loss, as well as kind of finding her own sense of empowerment that she got over the Joker kind of thing.
Right.
So it's entirely possible we could do this. But again, it just depends on the story that you write.
I guess so. As for the idea of, sort of another female-led kind of squadron of people led by Harley Quinn, I don't know, because it sounds a little much more like, it kind of just sounds like a femme version of Suicide Squad.
If anything, this might actually be DC's answer to Deadpool. roughly, where we get more of a comedic handling of heroes and villains instead of like a serious one, because that's what, at least to me, Romney will probably know a little bit better, but like with the DC Rebirth and things like that, that's kind of the direction they're taking Harley, is they're making her the DC equivalent of Deadpool.
To a point.
Yes.
It's just, given the current state of the DC Cinematic Universe, I don't see them quite going that route just yet, because a lot of the Deadpool-y elements didn't really come about until Harley was able to basically break away from the Joker and not have that be her defining character trait, where she was actually able to kind of go out on her own. That's where we're starting to see a lot more of these comedic ideas coming in. And honestly, for the DC Cinematic Universe, it would be too early for that sort of thing, because especially given the clunky establishment of the Joker, they've got too much to clean up, basically, before they try to do anything even remotely close to imitating Deadpool. And that's even implying if they understand what made Deadpool work in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's really my concern on the matter, is that this movie is going to be played off as DC's Deadpool, and I'm worried that Warner Brothers doesn't have that that particular mindset to be able to do it.
I mean, if you give it to the right director who knows what they're doing, maybe, but that's a pretty big maybe. I mean, for all we know, it could end up in the hands of someone like, say, Paul Feig, and we have another disaster like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that comes to my mind that could do this is the guy who did Deadpool, and he's not going to do it. He's working with Fox. So, I mean, they're already working on Deadpool too. I couldn't honestly tell you like any director off the top of my head who could actually pull this off.
Well,
maybe Ben, but I don't know if I would put this in Ben's lap. Well,
Tim Miller isn't necessarily attached solely to Fox. I mean, unless they signed a specific deal with him. So who knows? Maybe Warner Brothers might try headhunting him. Again, we don't know. Maybe they might even try bringing someone like Phil Lord and Chris Miller because of their work on the 21 Jump Street films, and take that for what it's worth, because I have some notes about their sense of meta humor, which may not be conducive to comic book movies. But again, it's too early for us to really even know what the hell they're going to be doing, because, well, they still have a lot of stuff they have to clean up.
Who did R.I.P.D.? He might have the tone for it.
I wouldn't trust. The R.I.P.D. would not be a good frame of reference, at least in my opinion. I mean, plus it's also one of the many comic book movie disappointments that has plagued Ryan Reynolds throughout his career.
I'm just legit, like, I'm curious, like, of who actually did R.I.P.D.
Let me see.
I'm looking it up right now. Don't worry about it, dude.
I can't even. Probably Robert. I can't say his name.
Robert Schwentke. Maybe, but again, it's one of those really big long shots, because I really can't think of anybody aside from the guy who did Deadpool to do what they would need to do for Harley.
Yeah, and that's even implying that because we still don't even know what they plan to do with the character, because again, Suicide Squad was such a mess behind the scenes that there's so much damage control Warner Brothers has to do before they can even think of going through with a standalone Harley Quinn film. And that's why they pretty much only so far has signed a first look deal with Margot Robbie. It's just like, hey, we don't quite have anything set in stone yet, but would you sign this deal with us?
Would you be interested? Yeah. And at this point, why wouldn't she be? I know that she liked playing Harley Quinn, so at that point, it wouldn't be necessarily too far of a jump to ask her to do it again. So final thoughts before we move on into the next story. Unfortunately, there isn't a whole lot to talk about aside from, yes, this is possibly happening, but until we get a script, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, basically the best way to phrase it, this is possibly happening in the future someday, maybe, we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just wait and see what materializes out of it. This is a long time in development here.
Okay. And the next story that we have tonight is actually another TGS announcement that people brought to my attention, is the announcement of Resident Evil Vendetta. And so a lot of people actually misinterpreted what this was going to be, because the listeners who actually submitted this to me actually said, oh my gosh, they're going to remake they're going to make the first movie into a CG movie. That's not what this is. So Resident Evil Vendetta is going to be a brand new movie, but it takes inspiration from the original Resident Evil. So that's where a lot of people got confused, is they're actually taking inspiration from it, not necessarily that they're going to do it.
Well, looking at like the posters they've got and some of the screenshots that have been released, I can see where a lot of the inspiration is coming from the first movie.
Yes.
Because, I mean, on the poster they've got, and I found the Kotaku article that reported it. Give me a moment to try to get this.
Yeah, if it has the poster, let me know too, because I would love to be able to show that as well.
All right, here we go. Here's the poster, and, well, any Resident Evil fan would be able to recognize what's in the background. That's the classic Spencer Mansion. Yep. And so it's pretty clear they're thinking, okay, let's take cues from the earlier games back when we had a sense of horror and weren't just action movies with zombies in them, thanks Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah. Even though he got one more movie. I think we still got one more movie coming.
Yeah, and they say it's the final chapter, and here's the other screenshot that we've got. Some people say it's Chris. Honestly, it's hard to tell who this guy is. He may look similar.
I could already, like, given how many Resident Evil games I've played, I could tell you, like, that matches the description of, like, 3 of them. Because that could be Chris Redfield, that could be Carlos Oliveira. I mean, you could take it to stretch and say that's Leon S. Kennedy.
Well, highly doubtful considering that they seem to have some sort of screenshot of him, but that may be, I don't know if that's from Degeneration or Damnation or any of the other stuff they've got planned. So we still don't know what the story's about.
That would be Degeneration. So that would just basically be promo art that they're trying to do, because Degeneration I know was liked.
Yeah. Point being, there's a lot we don't know. They just say that the story is going to be similar to Resident Evil 1, but that's pretty much all we know, according to Kotaku and according to the producer, Hiroyuki Kobayashi, who was interviewed by the journalist from Kotaku.
Which at this point, I mean, given all the extended stuff that I've been able to get my hands on, is, you know, the closest thing we can get out of this is it's going to be inspired because it might actually be in a mansion. Well, then at that point, it's not necessarily imitating 1, because there are many games that have been in mansions. So, I mean, if they take inspiration from 1 in this because of that, then that's fine. But that could easily lead to at least 3 other games in the series, as far as I'm concerned. Alex, your thoughts on Resident Evil Vendetta? You're not the biggest Resident Evil fan, but I'd be curious to see if you know anything on them, or if you have any thoughts on it.
Not really. I've never played any Resident Evil games, so I can't really give much of a thought here.
Oh, trust me, we're going to fix that. And then Romney, do you have any thoughts on the matter? I mean, obviously, you're not a big fan of the Paul W.S. Anderson movies, and frankly, I'm not either.
Yeah, honestly, the reason those films still keep getting made is primarily because the foreign box office keeps saving them for some really strange reason. But honestly, there's still only so much we can speculate on until we see. Like, most we've got so far is screenshots, but not really any trailers of this film in particular. When it comes to the Resident Evil CG movies, I enjoyed them immensely. Yeah, they're goofy, they're silly, because, let's face it, Resident Evil was never meant to be taken as seriously as it is. I think people at Capcom kind of lost sight of that, which is why you have something as enjoyable as Resident Evil 4. So, who knows where they could go. I don't think this is going to be a straight retelling of the first game because, well, you've got Resident Evil 7 on the horizon, and given that it's basically going to be rebooting everything and going back to basics, I get the feeling Vendetta may tie more into what was going to unfold in Resident Evil 7 rather than any of the story we've been told in the previous 6 games.
And that makes sense. Like, the Vendetta could be a setup to 7. And maybe, you know, the guy that we're seeing in these screenshots, he's the protagonist of 7. And so at that point, this is just building up into that. And that's really what I'm guessing is happening here. I think, in all honesty, this is just a build up to the 7 hype and to get people to purchase the game, because Capcom's worried because of 6, nobody will buy 7. So at that point, it sounds a lot more likely that Vendetta would be to hype 7 than anything else.
Yeah, and looking at the director's track record, it's definitely hard to get a gauge on kind of his style, because most of these films have been only released in Japan. I mean, the only thing on here that I know I'd be able to look up later would be Ultraman X, because of Crunchyroll's deal with Tsuburaya and Chayo, I guess, to a certain extent, but that's a whole separate thing. But he seems to have been a major action director. He's done some visual effects stuff, so who knows? Maybe it'll go well, maybe it won't. It's very much 50-50, but we won't know until we start seeing a trailer and seeing if it connects to 7 or if it's just a standalone story.
Yep. So I believe we pretty much covered everything on the matter because unfortunately there just isn't a whole lot on Vendetta yet. We don't have a trailer or anything like that, or at least I don't think we do. I wasn't able to track one down. So we have at least something for people to look forward to, but we're going to be waiting on this now. While we're getting our guest in here, so I'm going to encourage our guest because she's actually in the chat right now to go ahead and join us. But while we're doing that, I actually do have a little bit of business to take care of, if you guys don't mind.
Oh, apparently there is a trailer that actually has been released.
Oh, good. Okay, well then we will link it in our Twitter and people can check it out.
Yeah, because it appears to have been uploaded by multiple people by this one because it was unveiled at TGS. So there's that.
So again, I have a little bit of business to take care of while we're waiting on our guests to talk about Digimon Adventure Tri. And so the little bit of business is simply, there was another story, a tech story that was brought up by a couple of our listeners. And there's a reason that it didn't make the agenda tonight. So before you guys start writing me the hate mail, it's because I already did a video about it yesterday. And so you guys can check that out on my channel. And it is regarding the recent announcement that Chris Metzen of Blizzard has retired at the age of 42. So you guys can check that out. I have a specific video on that. We also did get a lot of people pointing out the recent leak of Warcraft Adventures, and nothing against that, but I mean, you could already get the Warcraft Adventures on YouTube like a couple of years ago. So there's not really a whole lot to announce there, but if you guys have actually played the legit thing, because when I got there, the link was gone because Blizzard had already interfered on the matter and asked them to take it down. You guys can give us your thoughts on it, and I would love to hear what you guys thought of Warcraft Adventures. It's one of those games that I really wished I could have gotten my hands on. With that being said, though, we're still waiting on our guest. And actually, I do have one other big announcement to take care of. Since I love you guys so much, you guys get the announcement here first. Well, not necessarily, because Anime Atlas got it first earlier tonight. And that is that for people who are interested in the 100 subscriber live stream that I'm going to be doing, that's going to be happening next Saturday. And it's going to be happening roughly around 7 or 8 o'clock Mountain Time, just so that I can have at least enough of a gap between then and Geek News. So you guys can join me there. It's an Ask Me Anything stream, so you guys can ask whatever you'd like. But however, I do reserve the right to be able to say I'm not going to answer that. And I've already worked some things out for a lot of people to be able to show up during that, and you guys can ask questions of them as well. In fact, I dare say that 2 of these yahoos are actually going to try and make it as well. So you guys can look forward to that. And of course, we have many others that might be able to show up. It just depends because Saturdays are busy for people. So with that, those are the announcements. I will be doing an official video, so people don't have to worry about that. I'll give the official details there. And with that, we're still waiting for our guest to come in, but I'm going to go ahead and start up the discussion. And that is that... What?
Well, I did have one thought, because I'm actually looking at the trailer of Biohazard Vendetta, and it's not Chris. I have the audio off. It's not Chris. Leon is a central character to this story. So whether or not it connects to 7 or not, or if it's self-contained, still don't know. But that's so far the details that I could see. So that early screenshot of Leon on the article did come from the trailer for Vendetta.
If Leon's connected, then it's probably connected to the canon, because Leon's part of the whole agency thing that they have, the anti-umbrella agency. So if he's involved, then it's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the discussion of Digimon Adventure Tri, and also good night to Anime Atlas. I just barely saw that, and I don't have the time to be able to type that out for you. So yeah, we were able to get into a limited screening for Digimon Adventure Tri Episode 1. I want to clarify that before people say, you saw the whole thing? No, we saw Episode 1, and it was good. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and start the discussion here. And we're going to start things off with, obviously, the things that we liked about Digimon Adventure Tri Episode 1. And I'm going to go ahead and start off with the Shadow Blazer here, because he's been excited to talk about this all night.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, let me, if I haven't already made this clear before on this show, I have seen Digimon Adventure Tri prior. I did actually watch it subbed when it came to Crunchyroll. The difference is Crunchyroll, and I'm sure Toei wanted them to do this, decided to split it all up into individual episodes. Hello, welcome to the chat there.
Hello. Is this thing on?
Yes, it is. All right. So,
Welcome.
Alex, go ahead and continue your thought, and we'll just go down the line.
Okay, so yeah, I'd seen Digimon Adventure Try when it came to Crunchyroll. There, of course, it was subtitled. Now that it's finally actually getting the English dub that I've wanted for so long, and getting most of the original cast back, save for the few that they couldn't get back for probably reasons, but it was exciting, and it definitely flowed a lot better as a single movie than it did as the 4 split up parts that we got on Crunchyroll. Okay. And I really enjoyed it a lot more this time, I think, around. There are still probably some issues I have just having seen the other 2 movies and now knowing what it's kind of like in hindsight, that Toei wants to kind of pick and choose what canon they want to follow. You know, do they want to acknowledge season 2? Do they not? I wish they'd just pick one and be done with it. But mostly, I've already vlogged about the movies, in fact, prior, so I'm probably not going to get too heavy in the story as much as I want to get into the performances of all the cast members. You know, we got the original Ty back, we got Joshua Seth back, and he's pretty much been retired from voice acting for years now, but I'm glad he wanted to come back out and do this. You know,
refresh my memory, who does he play?
Ty.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. All right.
Although apparently he was actually in town for the state fair that's going on. Damn it. If there's ever time to go to the state fair, it would have been now.
Yeah, I read that on Anime News Network, and I was like, darn, why didn't we go to Salt Lake?
Yeah.
All right, and we actually do have our special guest here, and that is Brooke Gossard, a.k.a. Forlorn Hope, a longtime follower of my channel, of Alex's channel, of Geek News, as well as Dragon Shadow. How are you doing this fine evening, Brooke?
Oh, I'm doing good.
All right, well, you're kind of next in line, so why don't you go ahead and tell us the things that you liked about Digimon Adventure Try, Episode 1.
Well, like Alex, I've watched both movies on Crunchyroll subbed, and they were all split into like 4 different movies, which is really odd, and I don't know, it broke up the pacing totally, so... but here I liked it a lot more because, you know, it's all in one big movie format, and it was dubbed. I have a soft spot for the dub and the corny jokes, so.
Oh, we'll get to them tonight. Don't worry too much about that, people. We're going to get to those tonight. Romney, why don't you go ahead and give us your positive thoughts on, or the things you liked for Digimon Adventure Try.
All right, well, for context, unlike Alex and Brooke, I actually waited to see Digimon Adventure Try until this theatrical release with the dub, because although I had a Crunchyroll account when it was launched, I just didn't like the fact that they split it up. I wanted to see how it functioned as a feature, and I also wanted to wait until the dub, just so that way I could kind of see it. Basically, because with subtitles, it can get kind of distracting sometimes, and it was very much the case, let's wait until I can actually see this, at the very least, as a complete feature. And so far, what I like that they did try to kind of acknowledge, like, brought back as much of the original cast as they could, and that they were all really on point, and the action is pretty much, I wouldn't say the same classic Digimon action that I remember, because, well, childhood memory can be very deceiving, but It was very intense action. It's the kind of stuff that I remember liking about Digimon as a kid, especially with how they try to build things up, and this is coming from someone who hasn't seen the later movies subbed on Crunchyroll. There was some foreshadowing, which I can see that I'm kind of with Alex, where there's like, what canon are they trying to tie it to, especially given the deaths they allude to in the opening scene that I only caught briefly because we were late getting into the theater, that I had to kind of look up later to kind of understand and confirm some suspicions.
Yeah.
You didn't miss much. That was pretty much it.
So, yeah. My thoughts on the matter are very simple. I kind of did what you did, Romney, where I actually saw like the first, I think 10 minutes on Hulu, and just to see like the change in character and things like that. But then eventually me and my wife were actually watching, and my wife forced me to turn it off because she had since talked to Alex and she knew that a dub was coming. So at that point she's like, well, but I want to see this dubbed, and therefore I don't want to have it spoiled. And I tend to agree. I tend to want to see these things dubbed if I can, and spoiled if I have no other choice. And so at that point, my thoughts are, I liked it. I thought overall it was good compared to a I mean, I don't want to compare it to the original Digimon movie that we got way back when, because there is no comparison between the two as far as I'm concerned. This one clearly wins that struggle. There were obviously a lot of things that I liked, a lot of directions that they took that I thought were prudent. But I was a little bit thrown off. You know, I walked in with some preconceptions of where this actually was in the timeline and had to be re-educated by my panel that no, this was actually a lot further in the timeline than I thought it was. Because obviously we had season 2 stuff in there, and we already had TK and Kari already using their D2s instead of their original Digivices. So, I mean, overall, I enjoyed the experience, contrary to some of the problems that came up in the theater because of me. I have no problem admitting this. But first, before we get into that, because I'm already going to get questions about it, were there anything... I'm actually going to start with Brooke on this one. Was there anything in particular you didn't like that they did with Adventure Try? Was there any particular directions that you didn't think were either worthwhile or just dumb?
Do you mean just in general, or do you mean the dub? Or
however, like, do you not like particular roles that they got for the dub? Do you not like particular directions that the movie took with some of the character development? Things like that.
Okay, well, to start out with the dub, there are a few things I didn't like about it. Like, there was like the pronunciation of Genai was like Genai or whatever. Genai. I think that's more close to what the Japanese had, but it's still consistency with the dub would have been nice. And some of the new voice actors threw me off. Like, I forgot who does the new Joe, but he doesn't sound like anything like the old actor, and I'm like, whoa.
I would agree with that. I don't think he sounds kind of there in certain lines, but most of the time he doesn't.
Yeah.
Let's see. New Joe is Robbie Damon.
Oh, okay. I don't think I know him that well. So
the name sounds familiar.
It looks like other roles have included Durarara, Aldanoa Zero, Sailor Moon. I'm guessing that's the new dub. So Skip Beat. Your Line April, Sword Art Online 2. Yeah, that's to name a few.
Okay, so you went into the dub. Were there any things in the movie that you didn't particularly like that they did?
I didn't really like how I don't know what's going on with the continuity with like 02 and stuff. That's really weird. And
well, it's definitely questions they haven't answered yet.
The animation definitely is a bit weird at times, like your tagline suggests. All the jerky faces.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. Let's go ahead and move on into Alex. Was there anything in particular that you didn't like with Digimon Adventure Try?
There are some moments where the animation doesn't look as polished as it should be for a theatrical film. Even by Toei standards, I kind of expect you to be doing a little better for this, Toei. Come on. So there are some times where I can tell the animation is not at where it really should be. In very particular, I can remember where there's a bit where when Mimi is first arrived at the airport, and she I can't remember if she handed or she shook someone's hand, but it's like you can tell it's like two separate keyframes, and there's like virtually no in-betweening for it. It looks so stiff.
So it's like the CG for the Digivolutions is still pretty horrible, despite it being a movie. So.
Really? That's actually one of the things I liked.
You did?
I did like the new Digivolutions.
I thought they looked
I wanted to see what they did with Ultimate. I at least like the fact that all of them were CG instead of basically trying to cut costs and say instead only Matt and Ty got the CG evolutions, and everybody else got just regular animated ones, but with CG backgrounds. I didn't mind that concept, but again, one of the things that actually irritated me was we saw some Ultimate forms, we saw Mega forms, and we didn't see the same sequence being put into them that we did for going to Champion. And that was a little disappointing.
Probably just to save time, I think.
Probably, but I don't buy that. Because, well, when I get into my dislikes, there were a couple of other time wasters they could have gotten rid of.
Yeah.
So, Alex, continue on with your dislikes because I interrupted you.
I think that's pretty much it because I already mentioned the story problems earlier. So, and a lot of what my issues are with the movie, I've covered in my previous vlogs on my channel about this from when I first watched the subs. So, you can go really watch those. We'll say I'm probably just going to gush about the performances of everybody.
I had a couple more problems with the dubs that I wanted to talk about, like how they had a dubbed intro, but then the rest was the original Japanese score, and I'm like,
yes,
oh yeah,
that was what I was going to bring up. Was that theme song? I mean, I understand that I understand there may be some sort of rights dispute with Saban over use of the original theme, but I'm just thinking
they used it in the background music.
Yeah,
I'm meaning the original Digimon like Saban theme, not.
Oh
yeah,
because they were
digital monsters. Yeah,
I can understand there's some disputes, but I'm just thinking, Toei, if you can't get the rights and you're trying to appeal to nostalgia, just stick with Butterfly. I mean, we'll live.
Yeah.
You had the Japanese ending.
I think personally they should have done that because, frankly, any hardcore Digimon fan has seen that at least once, and they all come out and agree that was the superior opening theme.
Yeah, and at the very least, it wouldn't have. It's just at the very least, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been as at odds with the visuals we were seeing. Because I looked at how the intro looked with Butterfly, and you can tell with Butterfly it actually syncs up a little bit better and works with what they're trying to establish. But with having a very repetitive, very obnoxious opening song that we got, it just didn't work with the visuals we were seeing.
Yeah.
Personally, I never cared much for Butterfly, and even this is essentially tries the first time I've ever watched Digimon with Japanese audio, and I gotta say I don't find Butterfly that amazing of a song. I liked the idea of introducing a new song, considering they probably weren't going to get the original Saban music back because this isn't really a Saban production here. So I figured, but Brooke said this too, if you're going to make this new theme, use it. And they didn't use it. They only used it for the intro, and the rest they just stuck to the Japanese music for. So.
Yeah. I mean, and even then, I'm just thinking for something like Digimon Adventure Try, if they're trying to kind of, I mean, I understand they want to have it be similar to the theme most fans know and love, but honestly, I think they should have, if they wanted to do a new theme, they should have gone the route that was done for, say, Season 4, where they tried to at least have it be kind of like a Japanese anime opening. Yeah, I mean, at least the lyrics for Frontier were a bit cheesy, but at the very least, you can listen to the song on its own. It actually it's not as much of an earworm as what we got for the first 3 seasons, and I think that would have worked better for the much darker tone that this film was going for.
So, Brooke, you said you had additional other problems that the dub had.
Oh, the other thing that was really weird was that they didn't say the attack names. I know that's more of a dub thing, but
Yes.
Continue it. Why not?
Well, again, there are a dozen other time wasters already in this movie. Just say the attack names. We're used to it.
Yeah. You don't.
Could it potentially be a lip matching issue?
I don't know.
That
You
didn't
could
stop
do
them
it
before.
off
That's the
screen.
thing. Because that's the thing. Because they never even synced the lips with the actual attacks in this in the initial run. I mean, let's face it. Agumon was able to say pepper breath while still breathing fire, so that would not have been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
I don't buy that anymore. Because I mean, at that point, you had the lip syncing issue with Togemon, and she actually said her attack. So that's one of those things that was actually frustrating to me. Moving on to Romney, what were the things that you disliked from Digimon Adventure Try?
Well, aside from the theme, which was going to be my opener before it was brought up, like that was the one thing I disliked. Another thing I disliked overall was just the pace of it. The fact that it very much was all about the nostalgia teasing. Let's do all the stuff everyone's familiar with and just tease the crap out of the later movies. And honestly, as a whole, as a feature, as someone who hasn't seen it divided, it just felt like you had a bunch of episodes of a longer series just smashed together in the editing room to basically hit the feature-length runtime. And even then, some scenes, I think it could have been helped by moving the post-credits scene up rather than having it be post-credits, because the post-credits scene was a nice bookend to the overall arc that Tai had throughout the film, where rather than being gung-ho like he was in the earlier adventures, he was definitely a lot more aware of, oh, there's people's lives at risk, there's a lot of property at risk, we need to be more careful, and that being kind of the whole impetus of why he's being more hesitant, which is why you have the drama between him and Matt. And so that was kind of the issue I had with it, was that if they just made some smarter editing decisions, the pace could have worked a little bit better if they at least committed to the darker themes they were trying to go for, instead of going for the blatant nostalgia teasing that they were.
So unfortunately, it looks like Brooke is having a little bit of connection issues. Are you still there, Brooke? Okay,
I'm back. Sorry, my internet's a little bit spotty sometimes.
No worries. I promise you, we will sacrifice the proper gnomes. I'm just not able to do that right now. So at that point, I guess I'll go into my thoughts on the matter, and a lot of them have been voiced. I wanted Butterfly to be in here because I feel kind of where Romney does. It fits more with the pace of how the intro began. Nothing against the original Digimon, although, oh man, that song is so annoying after a while. Like when you're actually trying to re-listen to it, you actually do get a little annoyed with all the times it shows up. So with that being
at least Season 3 switched things up, so.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm okay with that. Excuse me. So at that point, I like Butterfly personally. I think it would have worked better with the pacing of what this intro was trying to do. The other thing that bothered me was the saying of the attacks. I've always loved that as a Digimon fan, and the fact that they took it out especially is frustrating because I'll say it because it's the first thing that came to my mind. This movie's animation feels like a better or an improved version of the original movie's animation, where it was fast-paced action, but it looked cleaner. And so at that point, I'm all for that, but I still wanted to hear Garurumon say Howling Blaster. I still wanted to hear Greymon say Nova Blast, kind of thing. And so that was disappointing to me. And I will also say that I agree with what the panelists said. There were a lot of points where we could have just cut to the chase a little bit more to be able to fit in more stuff. And I agree with what everybody has said here. A first episode is supposed to spoil what's to come. And
tease.
I'm okay
the term is tease, not spoil.
Yeah, it's late, people. It's supposed to tease what's to come. And I agree with that concept. You have to tease it. But at the same time, there were a lot of moments that were, for lack of a better term, cutesy enough that I didn't think that they needed to be as long as they were, kind of thing. I could easily have taken like half a second out of those and be able to put those towards combat stuff. Because here's the thing, people, I get that people love the cutesy stuff of Digimon. I'm a dude. I'm all for the combat, and that's what mattered to me. And frankly, I felt more time was put on the cutesy stuff than there was on the combat.
Yeah, but I want to stress caution with that, Adam, because I don't think they waste that much time like you imply. And I think if the movie's pure combat, then, well, we get The Hobbit Part 3 where it's just where it's like 3 hours of action, basically.
I would dare say I disagree with you, because I can guarantee you there would be no Legolas in this Digimon movie.
Well, that's for a separate debate. But
I mean, technically, we already got a love triangle in it, so, you know.
Well, yeah, but to that, the whole, like, the cutesy stuff, I understand there was a little bit of pandering, but for some of the character development, I feel it was kind of necessary, because obviously these are characters we have not seen in years, so naturally we're going to want to know kind of what they've been up to, kind of how they have changed over the years, especially the kind of development necessary for Ty to explain. I mean, yeah, a lot of people made jokes in the audience, especially during what was supposed to be the big climax between Matt and Ty. I mean, that...
Should we just get into the story now so that we can just get it out there?
We should. But point being, I can kind of see why they went the route they did, because there's obviously a lot of catch-up that the audience needs to do, and so it makes sense to have the characters do it. That way, the audience gets the information they need without having a huge exposition dump or a bunch of flashbacks thrown at us.
Yeah. So let me go ahead and get this story out of the way, because I have a feeling that people are going to want to know this. When we went, I was sitting next to Aldo. And unfortunately, Aldo couldn't make it tonight, but Aldo and me... There, nothing against Aldo, but when you put him and me together, like next to each other on seats, we have fun. And we just sat there and made fun of like 80% of the, and it looks like Brooke is having more internet issues, so she'll be back in a second. So we were making fun of this. I swear we made this a living heck for my wife because she's sitting there trying to enjoy Digimon, and then she has to deal with me and Aldo just giggling back and forth on all of the weird stuff that they're doing. And so there were a couple of moments in the theater where Drax spoke up. One of which got me crap because it was when, I'm just going to point this out, Tai is not my favorite character in Digimon. Neither is Agumon. In fact, I hate the focus on them because, frankly, there are better Digimon in the lineup. And so at that point, I will be the first to admit that I've never found Greymon amazing. I knew that he had to be the first Digivolution that they would show, but I made my disdain for it equally clear as I showed a giant middle finger when Greymon evolved.
Yeah, that wasn't even remotely close to the moment I was thinking of. I was thinking
no,
of the moment.
we're getting to the other moment. So an entire movie later where me and Aldo were just giggling back and forth. Finally, what we've been giggling about got voiced by another person in the theater, which is this movie had a lot of, and this is actually one of those things that I would do to save time. There were a lot of moments, I'm going to call them Brokeback moments, where Tai and Matt were anxiously staring at each other because they were dealing with some issues. And I would not say it was about the conflict of dying people. I would say it's more along the lines of a bromance issue. You can judge me all you want, people. That's how these scenes played out to me. Like, literally in my head, the guitar was a twanging.
Well played to everybody.
Not the best choice of words.
So at that point, I think it was the last one where Tai decided to make a decision, or just decided, I'm going to fight. They had a really long, awkward pause and stared at each other. And me and Aldo were just like sitting there joking, just kiss already. Just kiss already. You're going to kiss. And finally somebody out in the theater just screamed, just kiss already. And immediately this was gut reaction. I didn't even plan it, but my reaction was, thank you.
Yeah, just
so the entire theater was laughing.
Yeah, as soon as that happened, the whole audience just went upward. And he didn't even say just kiss, he just says kiss, and everyone just lost it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what everyone was thinking, though.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I looked at that and I just heard the guitar a twanging, and I thought that's where they were going to go with it. So I as soon as the guy immediately screamed out kiss, I immediately had the gut reaction of thank you. So we had those moments happen, and I actually got one thing that you guys didn't know when we were going to our cars and all that. I got pulled aside by a guy who's like, were you the one that actually yelled out thank you? I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, that was awesome, thank you. That was awesome. That was a good moment. Did you guys plan it? No. So at that point, that's actually one of the things that I wanted to cut out, was all of the staring between Matt and Tai. It was so damn awkward.
Much yowie, much wow.
Well, but at that point, like me and Aldo were making the joke. It's like, does Sora even need to be here? She's obviously not the object of their affection, because they're too busy looking into each other's big old blue eyes to even notice that the girl is there. So at that point, I thought, dude, we could easily cut like maybe a minute of just those two staring at each other, and we could have focused on more combat. Maybe we could have gotten a Digivolution for War Greymon at the very least, or something. Yeah. But no, it didn't happen. So I think we got into the likes, we got into the dislikes. I'm just going to go ahead and bring this out for the heck of it, because there was a lot of moments that left us all laughing. And we're going to start with Brooke. What was the funniest point in the movie for you?
I'd have to say Izzy saying his line of prodigious.
Oh, wow. I actually thought for a second there it was going to be, anything involving Mimi.
Oh, I loved Mimi whenever she was on screen.
No, I'm saying anything involving Izzy hearing the name Mimi, because then he would just freeze up. We get it. You have a crush on Mimi.
I ship it.
The other moment that happened was the Joe's boyfriend or no, my bad, Joe's girlfriend.
Yeah,
and how everybody was like freaking out.
Izzy's expression.
Izzy's expression like defined the audience right there. It's like,
what?
Because like I know a lot of people that had like shipped Joe and Mimi, that they would happen. And I think even at that point, like we couldn't even hear the dialogue in the theater where they were just like, I don't know if I believe you, because we were all just sitting there going like, what?
Everyone just was laughing at it.
Yeah.
Cracking up.
Okay, so any other funny moments that you want to mention out, Brooke?
No, I like Prodigious. I liked whenever Mimi was on screen. It was all good.
All right.
Alex had some good lines too, though.
No, TK had a lot of good lines. And in fact, one of the things that me and Aldo made fun of was we were thoroughly convinced that Matt, TK, and Gabumon are all being played by the same actor, which was Vic Mignogna.
Oh, no, they're not, though.
No.
I don't care. They all sound like Vic Mignogna to me now, and therefore that's what I believe. They're all Edward Elric.
In fact, I mean, at least with Matt and TK, it makes sense because they're brothers, so they would sound somewhat similar to each other.
In fact, that was actually another joke me and Aldo were making, was like, with all Matt's talk about there's a time for thoughts and there's a time for action, and I'm like, yeah, this is a time for action. Clap your hands and get right into it, because it's Edward Elric as far as I'm concerned. Alex, your funniest thought or your funniest moment in Digimon?
I agree with Brooke. The Prodigious line was great. And, it's amazing. Mona Marshall is 69 years old and she still sounds like she did in 1999. It's truly amazing. And I loved hearing that line yet again because we all remember Izzy's trademark Prodigious line. And also have to agree that all the times Mimi was ever on screen were terrific.
Okay. Romney, your funniest moments from Digimon Adventure Try.
Well, off the top of my head, I mean, you guys have already mentioned the Mimi stuff, especially kind of when they're all being brought together. Everyone else is like super serious, but then as the person is driving Mimi to the scene, Mimi's just talking her ear off, and she's just like, and like so much so you can tell that she shoved them all in the back because she didn't want to deal with it when she was giving them a ride back. But that was one thing I liked, was how she was just talking as if she was like completely oblivious to the seriousness of the situation, and the person's just like, why did I sign up for this? And as for any other comedic moments, kind of off the top of my head, not much is really coming to me aside from a few one-off, like the band name Knife of Day and everyone's reaction to that. And so, and those are the comedic moments that kind of stood out to me for the most part, that aside from what's already been mentioned, since the comedy kind of wasn't really what really caught my attention for the most part while I was watching it.
All right. So I'm actually going to mention a couple of the other moments because a lot of you guys have mentioned them. My funniest moment was Joe announcing he has a girlfriend, because, well, that pretty much just set the tone at that moment. Like, I swear Izzy's face was what everybody looked like when they heard that news. Like, that's not so the other one that I would actually mention that was funny was Izzy talking to Sora while at a French restaurant. And so he made it sound like, so he like threw off the fact that he was speaking French to the waiter as interference on the phone. Wow, that's actually kind of ballsy for Izzy, because Izzy usually, like he actually says what he's doing at that moment. So the fact that he was like leading her on and just like, oh, s'il vous plaît, and then she's like, what? I didn't even understand half of what you were saying. I think this connection's bad. Bye. So I did like that moment. Another one that I think needs mentioning is the unique program that Izzy was trying to develop for fashion, and he was only developing it for business reasons, not at all in the fact that he was trying to woo Mimi. That wasn't happening. Or the fact that a friend of mine even came out and said, did Digimon just Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. me? Yes, it did. In fact, one of the jokes that I found a lot of people making was, what was the guy's name? Nishijima should be renamed to Coulson, because he might as well just be the Agent Coulson of this.
I kept trying to avoid calling him Yamaki because that was the character I immediately thought of with
You
the
and me
whole
both.
government.
You and
Yeah,
me, I was like trying to think of his name.
yeah. Although with the whole like Izzy's program thing, I just have to wonder on what occasion is he ever going to have to wear that lobster costume that showed briefly? I'm just like, on what occasion would that ever work?
Trust me, it ain't gonna work. And frankly, by the time this is over, we're gonna find out that Mimi's actually not as ascetic as we've all thought she was, and we're all gonna enjoy, or we're all going to embrace, because Izzy starts dating Mimi.
I actually caught the lobster costume this time around. I missed it when I was watching it on Crunchyroll, but I caught it here and it was like just cracked up.
I don't remember it either, but I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh.
And of course, the funniest moment of this entire thing, obviously, because it created a reaction within the theater, was all the damn staring. All the Ty, look deeply into my eyes. I know what you want to do to me right now, but we've got to deal with the Digimon in front of us.
If Toei wasn't so bad about flagging videos, I would totally make a video using Weird Al's Stuck in the Drive-Thru.
Oh, that'd be awesome. That'd actually be really great.
He looks at him and he looks at me and I look at him just for that.
The other one you need to find when you do that is Weird Al's "Do I Creep You Out?"
Now I want that video.
Do you know the song I'm talking about, Alex?
I don't think I know that song.
I'm going to send it to you via email tonight because it's perfect for those moments. But yeah, that's the thing that came across your minds, is like they were awkwardly staring at each other so long that just everybody's like, just kiss already. Just do it. Hook Matt and Ty up. At least we'll finally get into the combat. The other thing I also want to mention, which is actually revolving around my subline here, is, again, my favorite Digimon is Matt. Or not Digimon, but my favorite Digidestined is Matt, and therefore his Digimon is my favorite. And poor Garurumon, man. He came out of that egg and dirt face. It's like, Garurumon.
Oh my God.
Seriously. So, yeah, introduction to Dirt Face Mon. But I think that's gonna go ahead and do it for us, because it's really close to midnight. Mm-hmm. So first of all, thank you so much, Brooke, for showing up tonight and discussing Digimon Adventure Try. Hopefully we'll be able to work something out to be able to bring you in a little bit more, or at least sometime soon.
Sure.
But we'll see what we can make work out. And is there anything that you would like, if people want to try and get a hold of you, are there any things that you would like to pimp right now on Geek News?
I'm not currently a YouTube content creator, but you can find me at Forlorn Hope 638. Okay. And I'm on Backloggery, my anime list, just as Forlorn Hope, not with the letters, but...
Well, I mean, the other way that you could find us is you can look at every Draken Shadow video where she criticizes me for not using the proper episode titles.
That was a long time ago.
And you know what? You had every right to make fun of it. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up for the evening. Alex, if people want to get a hold of you to give their opinions on your opinions and all of that fun stuff, how do they get it? How do they do that?
Well, of course, YouTube is where I'm at a lot of the time. I am Shadow Blizzard 3000, and I do anime content I guess you could say regularly, but I don't post as much as I should. But I do anime content on my channel. I also do some game content on the side. Of course, I'm also at Twitter. That's really the social media I'm most active on, is at AlexJShort. And of course, I'm also on other anime sites like My Anime List and so on and so forth. But if you really want to find me at My Anime List, just ask me and I'll tell you where to find me.
Okay. Stephen Romney of Romney's Reviews. If people want to give their opinions to you on the opinions that you had this evening, how do they do that?
Well, you can always find me here at youtube.com/StudioGhostUtah. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Romney'sReviews, no apostrophe. And I am also on Twitter at Romney Reviews. And for this week's Romney recommendation, I am recommending Marvel's Black Panther animated series. If you want to see what a Marvel Knight series would look like if they actually put effort into the animation instead of just making a bunch of boring motion comics, this is probably what you would end up with. It's based on the original Hoodlin run of the Marvel Knights imprint of Black Panther. It is it's only 6 episodes, but it is probably some of the best. It's the best adaptation of a Marvel series I have seen in quite some time. I was rewatching it while working. It's available currently through Shout Factory, so if you ever get the chance, it's Black Panther with Jaimin Hansu as the voice of Black Panther, as well as featuring other actors like Kerry Washington, Jill Scott. It's like good voice cast. The visuals look good, even though it is a bit stilted since it's modeled after the John Romita Jr. drawings. But that's this week's Rom News recommendation: is the Marvel Knights Black Panther animated series, available now through Shout Factory.
All right. And I apologize if I'm bouncing back in the chair. I think my office chair is busted now. I'm not sure why. But if people want to get a hold of me to be able to give the opinions that they have on all the stuff that I've talked about, there are 2 really great ways to be able to do it. One is my Twitter, which is @track2326. You can leave your stuff there. I'm not as active on Twitter. Alex can already attest to that, but I do try to get to you guys' comments as best as I can. And also you can follow me on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/track2326. That's where you're at right now, where Geek News is hosted for the full-on archive that we have there, at least for the episodes that I can get. I would love to be able to get the Radio SLCC days if I can get them up there. And also, if you want to get a hold of the show directly, there are 4 ways to be able to do it. And the first 2 are social networking. So you can follow us on Twitter at GeekyNRO, and you can look us up on Facebook, look up Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, and like it. And you will get up-to-the-minute information with both on when we're going live, the discussions that we're going to be having, the topics that might be brought up. You can also submit your stories and links there. Some people do that, and I'm okay with that. You can also submit your stories to geekyweek@gmail.com or submit your feedback. We do accept any kind of constructive feedback that we can get from you guys, because how else are we going to be able to continue to learn, digivolve, and grow? I didn't want to throw that in there, but why not?
Boo.
I'm sorry. But you can do that at geekyweek@gmail.com. And if you want access to our podcast RSS feed, you can go to geekyweek.podomatic.com. That's where it's hosted, and it will have an iTunes button, so you can get the iTunes link. We don't have an official page. I don't know why iTunes has never done that, but that's where you can get the RSS feed for that. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for sticking with us, for dealing with all of the stories that we were talking about, for listening to our thoughts on Digimon Adventure Try. Special thanks to Brooke Gossard for showing up for Digimon commentary. And of course, for me, for Brooke, for Alex, and for Romney. We'll see you guys next time for even more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions.